All right, Shalom, Israel, Shalom, Shalom. First and foremost, I give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem Mashiach Malak Yahushai. That is to say, Yahweh, being named the Heavenly Father, who the world will call God, and Yahweh Shai, being named His only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly called Jesus Christ. This is Brother Kasadia from W5 Jersey, Philly. Through the Spirit and power of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, we dived into Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 6 on down. The breakdown that a lot of Christians stumble upon, taking this verse out of context and making a statement that Christ is God pursuant to this verse right here. Right? It's completely not what it's going into. But we want to dive right into it, right? Let's start off actually first with Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 1. Because this whole account is going into Yahweh Shai, his kingdom, the government he's going to establish with the elect, and the rulership that's given to him, right? This is Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 1. Nevertheless, the dimness shall not be such as was in our vexedness. It's like in our vexation. When at the first he lightly afflicted the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, and afterward did grievously afflict her by the way of the sea beyond Jordan and Galilee of the nations. Right, so the nation of Israel has been greatly afflicted on a physical level, right? The land of Israel, right, and on a spiritual level, we've been afflicted right now by these so-called spirits and principalities that's ruling in dark places. Reading on verse 2. The people that walked in darkness. Who's that people? The Israelites. We walked in darkness because we walked in the ways of this world, not knowing who we were, not knowing the true light, which is Yahweh Shai. We walked in darkness, but now we get to see that great light. It says the people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. And that's twofold, because Yahweh Shai was also born in this land that it's speaking of. Remember, Yahweh Shai is from Galilee, right? He lived in the land of Galilee, right? So he was born and raised. Well, he was raised, I should say. Let's go to Luke chapter 2. Let's go to Luke chapter 2 real quick. This is saying Luke chapter 2. And I want to get, I'm going to start at verse 4. It says, and Joseph also went up from Galilee out of the city of Nazareth into Judea unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David. So Yahweh Shai was there, right? We understand that Yahweh Shai is of Galilee, right? Nazareth, to be specific. So the Lord said this land and the people thereof, they've seen a great light. On a one-fold level, that's what it's going into. But on another fold, of course, Israel, just in general, we're seeing that great light. We've seen Yahweh Shai, and we see Yahweh Shai day by day on a spiritual level, right, with this word. So reading on, the people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them had the light shine. And who's that light? Yahweh Shai is that light. Let's go back to St. Luke, right? Actually, I want to go to St. John. This is St. John chapter 1 and verse 4. In him was life, and the life was a light of men. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. The same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. And that's not talking about just any old body, right? Remember, there's men that set up for destruction, right? On a spiritual level, there's a man in sin that has to be revealed. So it's not just talking about just any old man. It's speaking specifically about those that was predestinated to bear witness with this light. Everyone's not chosen, right? Everyone's not chosen. Many are called, but what? Only few are chosen. Let's go to John chapter 8. This is John chapter 8, and I'm going to get verse 12. Then spake Yahweh Shai again unto them, saying, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. So let's go back to Isaiah chapter 9. It's Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 2 again. The people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them had the light shined. Now, let's jump on down to verse 6, right? This Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 6. Let's get right into it, right? For unto us a child is born. Who's this us? The reason why we had to read the top of the chapter is to get the context, right? It's speaking of the land of Israel, speaking about Zebulun, Naphtali, speaking about the people of that land, which is who? Israel. So again, for unto us a child is born. This isn't the only, Isaiah isn't the only prophet that prophesied that there will be a child born unto the nation of Israel, meaning of the seed of Israel, to be the Messiah of Israel. And this is another reason why, if we go back to St. Luke, the 2nd chapter, which we just read, let's go back to St. Luke chapter 2. I'm going to read verse 1. And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And his taxing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria. And all went to be taxed, every one into his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee out of the city of Nazareth unto Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be taxed with Mary his espoused wife, being great with child. And so it was that while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered. And she soon brought forth her firstborn son, wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. Reading on, I want to jump down to, let's jump down to, right, I want to get into it. I want to jump down to, bear with me while I find this account. Right. Am I skipping over? I feel like I'm skipping over through the Spirit. Right. Let me see this. Luke chapter 2. And actually, I'm going to get it out of Matthew. I'm going to get the same account out of Matthew, right? The 2nd chapter. Right. Let's go to Matthew chapter 2. This is Matthew chapter 2, and I'm going to get verse 1. It says, Now when Yahushua was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and are come to worship him. When Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he demanded of them where Christ should be born. Right? It says, And they said unto him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet. Now, which prophet is speaking about? Because again, like I said, Isaiah isn't the only one that prophesied of this taking place, for there to be a child born into the seed of Israel. Right? Which is going to be the Messiah. It's also written, we're going to get it in the book of Micah, the 5th chapter. But let's continue on. And thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, art not the least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel. Now, if Christ is God, then who's speaking right here in Matthew, the 2nd chapter, and the 6th verse? Verse 6, And thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, art not the least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel. This verse is the Most High speaking to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, telling them that there's going to be a governor born to rule his people. If Christ is God, then why didn't he say, look, I'm going to be born? It says, for out of thee shall come a governor. Or he should have said, out of thee is going to come me that's going to rule you. You understand? So you see the possessive terms and the conversation is clearly another entity, if you will, prophesying and letting you know what's about to take place, that I'm going to send a governor in your lineage. right? He's speaking to Jerusalem. He's speaking to Israel, the Israelites, right? The Jews at the time. Verse 7. Then Herod, when he had privily called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search diligently for the young child. And when ye have found him, bring me the word again, that I may come and worship him also. And we know that's not what he really wanted to do, right? But we'll rest right there, right? We'll rest right there. It's furthermore in that account, but we're going to go back to Isaiah. I want to read Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 6 again. For unto us a child is born, and unto us a son is given. Now let's see who else prophesied of that. Like we mentioned already, it's written in the book of Micah. That's written in the book of Micah chapter 5. Right? Salakia. And this is Micah chapter 5. And I'm going to start at I'll start at 1. It says, now gather thyself in troops, O daughter of troops. He had laid siege against us. They shall smite the judge of Israel with a rod upon the cheek. And we know that took place. Read about that in Matthew, the 27th chapter. Right? How they smote Yahushua. Right? Bruised them, scourged them, spit upon them. Verse 2. But thou, Bethlehem, Ephratah, though thou be little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of thee shall he come forth unto me. So if Christ is being prophesied of being born, then who is this unto me? Who is this me? The Most High. Showing you the Most High is not Yahushua. And Yahushua is not the Most High. And that's okay. For you Christians that's watching this, that's okay. This whole ideology of linking Yahushua with being the Most High or Jesus to be the Most High, that's only because of the Christian doctrine that you've grown accustomed to. You got to be willing to grow. You got to come up out of that. That was only set up to say Jesus is white and Jesus is God, therefore God is white. That's what it's all about. All the nations, they have their God, and their God looks like them. So they set up this man, Caesar Borgia, to be Jesus and set him up to be God. Therefore, you think God is the white man that's oppressing you. No. Let's continue on. It says, out of thee shall come forth, yet out of thee shall he come forth unto me, that is to be ruler in Israel, who is going forth have been from old, from everlasting. So this is directly linking up with Isaiah. And we're going to break down why Yahushua is considered everlasting as well. Remember, Yahushua was created in the beginning. So let's go back to this. Isaiah chapter 9. And let me see. I had a few precepts written down. I want to get another one. Right? I want to, thoroughly dive into this. Let's go to Luke chapter 2. Luke chapter 2, and we're going to go to verse 34. It says, and Simeon blessed them and said unto Mary his mother, behold, this child is set for the fall and rising again of many in Israel, and for a sign which shall be spoken against. So the Lord, Yahushua, was set up for the fall, and he is set up for the fall of Israel. Because you had many of our brothers and sisters not believing in Yahushua, that's ultimately going to lead to your fall and your demise in his world, in his life. You want to believe Jesus is God, and you want to believe these ideologies, and even you got some of our brothers and sisters that's in Islam, they believe that he's just a prophet. And he's underneath of who they consider the great prophet, Muhammad. Complete madness. So he's set up for the fall, but also for the rising again, because Yahushua is rising up the hopeful elect. They're waking up as we speak, believing in him, going through the precepts, calling upon the Lord, repenting of their sins, confessing of their faults. It says, and for a sign which shall be spoken against. Let's go back to Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 6. For unto us a child is born, and unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. Now, what is this government speaking of? The government is a rulership. Right now, you're living in a government of the so-called white man. This is his rulership. From the west to the east, he stretched his arms across the whole world. This world is in a rulership right now of the so-called white man. NATO, right? America, right? EU, Russia, all across the earth. The white man is ruling right now. He's conquering. This is his government, his policy, his ruling class of men. This is their thing right now. Government is a kingdom. And Yahweh Shai, he's the true king. The Most High has set him up to be the true king. Remember, there was days where we didn't have a king. There was days where there was a judges set up. And you had elders that was set up and established. And you had priests that was set up. But we lived in days where we didn't have a king. So the Lord gave us a king. And the Lord gave us a great king. But the Most High, he doesn't need to be, ultimately, if you want to be technical, he will be the king over everything. But the Most High, he's always been above what you consider a king, right? Because a king is appointed. This is Jeremiah chapter 23 and verse 5. Remember, the Most High, he sets up and he puts down. Let's get that real quick. Let's go to Daniel chapter 4. The Most High, he's the one that sets up these kings. The Most High put Trump in office. He did that. The Most High put Putin in office back in 99. And at countless times, he continued to run for office. The Most High put Netanyahu over there in the land of Israel right now. The Most High put President Xi over in China. The Most High did that. He did that for his will to be done. Ultimately, to bring the demise of this world. And fulfilling Jeremiah, it's like Revelation chapter 16 and verse 12 on down. Really 13 and 14, bringing the kings of the earth to war. Right? Putting spirits on them. But this Daniel chapter 4. This Daniel chapter 4, and I want 25. It says, man, I'll read 24. This is the interpretation, O king. This is the decree of the Most High, which is come upon my Lord the king, right? It says that they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with beasts of the field. And they shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and they shall wet thee with the dew of heaven. And 7 times shall pass over thee, till thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will. So the Most High controls and manipulates the thoughts of kings. Remember that, right? The Most High said the king's heart. Let me get this precept, right? Let me get this precept real quick. Believe this is oh man, hold on, bear with me, right? Lord willing, let me get this precept real quick. It's kind of escaping me. All right, I found it. This is Proverbs 21 and verse 1. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord pondereth the hearts. So the thoughts and the hearts and intents of man is controlled by the Most High. So the Most High, again, he established who was king. This is Jeremiah chapter 23 and verse number 5. Behold, the days come, say Yahweh, that I will raise unto David a righteous branch, and a king shall reign and prosper, and shall execute judgment and justice in the earth. Who is it speaking of? The Lord said this king is going to be known as a righteous branch from the seed line of David. Who is that? Yahweh Shai. Let's get a couple quick precepts. Yahweh Shai is that branch. This is Isaiah chapter 11 verse 1. And there shall come forth a rod of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. And the spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and might, the spirit of knowledge and of the fear of Yahweh. And he shall make of him He shall make him of quick understanding in the fear of the Lord, and shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither reprove after the hearing of his ears, but with righteousness, right, with the law, shall he judge the poor, and reprove with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, right, being the word of the Most High, and with the breath of his lips, and shall he slay the wicked. And you continue on in this account. Let's go to Zechariah chapter 6. Just a couple quick precepts on who this branch is, right? This Zechariah chapter 6, and I want 12. Zechariah chapter 6 and verse 12. And speak unto him, saying, thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying, behold, the man whose name is the branch, and shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of the Lord. Right? So we know Zerubbabel, he had built the temple of the Lord, right? Right? He built the following the Babylonian captivity, right? And given a decree by Cyrus to go back and rebuild. So he built it. He built the temple, but let's dive a little bit deeper. Is it talking about that physical temple, or is it talking on a spiritual level? Even he shall build the temple of the Lord, and he shall bear the glory, and he shall sit and rule upon his throne. Well, hold on. Yes, Zerubbabel, he had built the temple, but when did he sit upon a throne? Yes, he was a governor of Israel, but he wasn't the king of Israel, right? Now, government is another word for rulership, but specifically, a throne isn't given to a governor per se. But it's gonna dive a little deeper. And he shall be a priest upon his throne. Well, hold on. During this time, you had Joshua. He was the high priest. Let's read verse 11. Then take silver and gold and make crowns and set them upon the head of Joshua, the son of Josedek, the high priest. So you had a high priest and you had a governor. And Joshua and Zerubbabel, they both represent Yahushai, the priest and the governor, the priest and the king, so to speak, right? Kingdom. So they represent Yahushai, but Zerubbabel was never the high priest at the same time. But this man, he will be the priest. It says, he shall be a priest upon his throne, and the counsel of peace shall be between them both. Well, hold on. We know there's a man known as the man of peace, or the prince of peace. And that's even further on in Isaiah that we'll go into. That's speaking of Yahushai. Zerubbabel is not the prince of peace, right? Let's continue on, though. That's not normally associated with his name, but it's going to further break it down. And the crown shall be to Himlim and to Tobiah and to Jedaiah and to Hen, the son of Zephaniah, for a memorial in the temple of the Lord. And they shall, and they that are far off shall come and build in the temple of the Lord, and he shall know the Lord of hosts had sent me unto you, and this shall come to pass if you will diligently obey the voice of the Lord your God. Right, let's get another precept. One more precept on the branch, right? One more precept on the branch. Let's go to Salaki. I want to get this in Zechariah chapter 10. Right? Zechariah chapter 10. And I want to start at Zechariah chapter 10. And I want to start at actually, I don't think it's Zechariah chapter 10. Let me see. Right, but Lord willing, you get the point, right, through the Spirit. And we're going to go back to Jeremiah chapter 23 and further go into this man who's also known as, or who is known as the branch, right? Let's go back to Jeremiah chapter 23. I'm going to start at verse 5. It says, behold, the days come, said the Lord, that I will raise unto David a righteous branch, and a king shall reign and prosper, and shall execute judgment and justice in the earth. In his days, Judah shall be saved, and Israel shall dwell safely. And this is his name whereby he shall be called, the Lord our righteousness. So this man is known as the branch. He's going to be set up as a king from the lineage of David. And in those days, Judah and Israel is going to be saved. In the days of Zerubbabel, we weren't saved. We were still in captivity. We were under the Persian captivity. It may have been, right, a lighter captivity, but we weren't. It was still captivity. We weren't saved or delivered from our enemies. To be saved, meaning you're delivered from your enemies. That's true salvation. We weren't saved then. Read about that in Isaiah. It's like in Psalm chapter 14 and verse 7. Right, Luke chapter 1 and verse 72. So we weren't saved during the time of Zerubbabel, but there's a time coming where we will be saved when Yahushua returns. Therefore, behold, the days come, said the Lord, that they shall no more say, the Lord liveth, which brought up the children of Israel from the land of Egypt, but the Lord liveth, which brought up and which led the seed of the house of Israel out of the north country, and from all countries whither I had driven them, and they shall dwell in their own land. When did this take place? Right after the Babylonian captivity, we was in the Persian captivity. Right after the Persian captivity, we was in the Greek captivity. Right after the Greek captivity, we were in the Roman captivity. And we were already in our land in some of those captivities. Some of us was able to read about Nehemiah and the priest. They were able to go back. Read about Ezra. Right? Again, you read about Zerubbabel and Joshua. They were in the land building up the temple, building up the walls, but we were in captivity. So this is talking spiritually. There's a time coming where we're going to be delivered from the north country. On a spiritual level, we understand that's modern day America. And we're going to be delivered out of this place. And we're going to have a king who's known as the branch, who's going to be our Lord and Savior, Yahushua. Let's go back to Isaiah. Actually, let's get a few more on this. Let's go to Jeremiah 33. Jeremiah 33, and I want to get 15. This is Jeremiah chapter 33, verse 15. And it reads, Salakia, right? And it reads, verse 15, in those days and at that time will I cause the branch of righteousness to grow up unto David, and he shall execute judgment and righteousness in the land. In those days shall Judah be saved, and Jerusalem shall dwell safely. And this is the name whereby he shall be called the Lord our righteousness. Right? The Lord repeated it twice. The Lord repeated it twice. For thus say Yahweh, David shall never want a man to sit upon the throne of the house of Israel. And when he says want, meaning lack. A lot of times you read in the scripture, want, that word want is lack. Just go into the blue letter, you'll see. Reading on. Neither shall the priest, the Levite shall want a man before me to offer burnt offerings and to kindle meat offerings and to do sacrifice continually. Right? We can rest right there. Let's go to Isaiah 22 and 20. Isaiah 22 and verse 20. And it reads, and it shall come to pass in that day that I will call my servant Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, and I will clothe him with thy robe and strengthen him with thy girdle, and I will commit thy government unto his hand, and he shall be a father to the inhabitants of Jerusalem and to the house of Judah. So this man Eliakim, the Lord had committed his government to him. Right? And not only that, but he's known as a father to Israel. Reading on. Because it's not uncommon to be considered a father to Israel. And we'll go into the accounts. But Paul was considered a father to Timothy and Titus, if I'm not mistaken. Right? Read on. And Onesimus. Read on, verse 22. And the key of the house of David will I lay upon his shoulder. What does that mean? For you to have the key of something, meaning you control the opening and the closing of that door. And we're talking about the throne of David or the house of David. He has control over who enters in and who doesn't in the house of David being elect. So the Lord is ultimately this man that has been prophesied of. Yeah, it says Eliakim, but through the Spirit, it's talking about Yahushua. And the key of the house of David will I lay upon his shoulder, and he shall open, and none shall shut, and he shall shut, and none shall open. And I will fasten him as a nail in a sure place. What does it mean to be fastened as a nail? Meaning you're unmoved. If you're building a house and you got it laying the 4x4s and the planks, and you taking nails and you putting it, you banging it down, and guess what? That house is built with that nail intact. So our house is built with the Lord. He's the foundation. He's a root and offspring of David. Reading on. And he shall open and none shall shut. And he shall shut and none shall open. And I will fasten him as a nail in a sure place. And he shall be for a glorious throne to his father's house. And they shall hang upon him all the glory of his father's house, the offspring and the issue, all vessels of small quantity, from the vessels of cups, even to all the vessels of flagons. And that day, say Yahweh of hosts, shall the nail that is fastened in a sure place be removed and be cut down and fall, and the burden that was upon it, it shall be cut off, for the Lord has spoken it. Right through the Spirit, we know this took place. We read that earlier. Yahweh shines for the fall and rising again of many in Israel. Let's go back to Isaiah. I also read that in Micah the 5th chapter, in the first verse, they're going to smite the judge of Israel with a rod upon the cheek. Back to Isaiah chapter 9. This is Isaiah 9 and 6. For unto us a child is born, and unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Let's go back over this. It says, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God. Yahushua, he is a God. Yahushua is a God. That shouldn't be a news flash for anyone, because you're, as a man of the Most High, you're also considered a God. Let's hold this. Let's hold this right here. Right? All right, I'll move that. Let's hold this. Let's go to Psalm chapter 82. So we're also considered gods, right? This is Psalm chapter 82. And I want verse 5. It says, Psalm 82 and 5. They know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are out of course. I have said, ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High, but ye shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for thou shalt inherit all nations. So Yahushua is a God, just as David is a God, just like Abraham is a God, just like Peter is a God, Paul is a God, John is a God, Isaiah is a God. If you believe in the Most High and you're a son of the Most High, you also are a God. That's not a foreign concept, right? So even Yahushua mentioned this as well. Let's go to John chapter 10. This John chapter 10, and I believe I'll start at 33. John chapter 10, verse 33. It says, the Jews answered him, saying, for a good work we stone thee not, but for blasphemy, and because thou, being a man, makest thyself God. Now, when did Yahushua ever say he was God? When did he ever say he was the Most High God? Because that's what they're really trying to get into. See, you Christians say that. You Christians say he's the Most High, but Yahushua never said he was the Most High. Right? It says Yahushua answered them, is it not written in your law? I said ye are gods. If he called them gods unto whom the word of God came, and the scripture cannot be broken, say ye of him whom the Father has sanctified and sent into the world, thou blasphemest, because I said I am the Son of God. If I do not the works of my Father, believe me not. But if I do, though ye believe not me, believe the works, that ye may know and believe that the Father is in me and I in him. And that's what you got to understand. The Most High, his spirit is in Yahushua, the Holy Spirit. And Yahushua is with the Father. Simple as that. Just like you should be with the Father. The Spirit of the Most High should be in you. And therefore, if the Spirit of the Most High is in you, therefore you're in the kingdom of heaven. If you believe and endure to the end. Right? Let's go back to this though. So Isaiah chapter 9, it doesn't just say that. It says, it's Isaiah 9 and 6. To the latter part. It says, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father. Now, why is Yahweh Shai known as the Everlasting Father? Again, you had accounts where men were considered fathers. You're supposed to be a father to the fatherless. Let's hold that. First, I want to get to this account where it says the everlasting. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 8. This Proverbs chapter 8, and I'm going to start at verse 22. Proverbs 8 and 22. And this is a dark parable, but through the Spirit, Lord willing, you understand. It says, the Lord possessed me in the beginning of his way. Before his works of old, I was set up from the everlasting, from the beginning, or ever the earth was. So this is talking about wisdom. Wisdom, the Spirit was set up from everlasting, right? The word of the Most High. It says, I was set up from everlasting, from the beginning, or ever the earth was. Where there was no depths, I was brought forth. Where there was no fountains abounding with water, before, it's like when there were no fountains abounding with water, before the mountains were settled, before the hills was I brought forth. While as yet he had not made the earth, nor the fields, nor the highest part of the dust of the world. When he prepared the heavens, I was there. When he had set a compass over upon the face of the depth, when he established the clouds above, when he strengthened the fountains of the deep. And we can hold this real quick. Let's go to Genesis chapter 1. This is Genesis chapter 1 and verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And if brothers have sense, right, and brothers are scholars, you know, when you go into that word right there in Genesis 1, that word God, it's a plural meaning for God. Remember, the Old Testament was written originally in the Hebrew, right? To get the context of the Bible, you sometimes have to go into the words. It's not the end all be all, but it does provide more clarity over how it was originally written. You got the New Testament written in the Greek and translated thereafter. So sometimes you got to go into those words as well. It's not the end all be all, but it does provide more clarity. At the end of the day, it's still precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little. And that's why you don't just hang it on that right there. Oh, well, this word right here, God says Elohim. It does say Elohim in the Hebrew. That's not the end all be all, though, because you're going to see now this point is going to be corroborated or proven and validated, if you will, when you jump on down. Let's jump down to 27, right? It says, I'll start at 26. And God, right, the same God, God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. So we see right here that word God truly was that plural meaning that we said earlier. God in the Hebrew is Allah. God, gods in the Hebrew will be Elohim. Some people say Elohim, but that's not the proper iteration of the Hebrew. So it'll be Elohim. Now, Elohim meaning the powers. So there are powers. You have the Most High, you have Yahweh Shai, you have the angels. You can further get another precept when you go to Colossians, right? Let's go to Colossians chapter 1, verse 15. Who is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of every creature. For by him were all things created. So everything you see in Genesis, the first chapter, Yahweh Shai had to be there before that, because by him, everything else was created. And we read that in Proverbs chapter 8 and 22 on down. For by him, all things were created that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. all things were created by him and for him, and he is before all things, and by him all things consist. And he is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he might have the preeminence. For it pleased the Father that in him should all fullness dwell. So the Most High created Yahushua, and it pleased the Most High that he allowed his son to create the things you see here. So back to Proverbs chapter 8 and verse 29. When he gave to the sea his decree that the water should not pass his commandment, when he appointed the foundations of the earth, then I was by him as one brought up with him, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing always before him, rejoicing in the habitable part of the earth, and my delights were with the sons of men. So you see that? So it gave you an account exactly how Yahushua would be known as the everlasting, right? So let's go back to, now he's not the only everlasting. Angels are everlasting. And ultimately, the true everlasting is the Most High, because there was nothing before the Most High. Yahushua can get that title because everything you see and everything that's created, they're all created through Yahushua. So let's go to John chapter 17. John 17, and I want to give verse 5. This St. John, right? Let's put some emphasis on that. St. John 17, and I'll start at verse 3, and I'm going to read on down. St. John 17 and verse 3. And this is life eternal, that they might know thee, the only true God, out of Hamashiach's own words. And remember, he is the word of the Most High. He's not going to speak a lie. He's speaking the truth. This is the truth. That the Most High, he's the only true God. So Yahushua, he is a God. You are a God, but there's only one true God. One true power. We have no power unless the Most High allows us to have power. You understand that? Read on. And Yahushua Mashiach, whom thou hast sent, I have glorified thee on the earth. I have finished the work which thou gavest me to do. So the Most High, the true God, gave work to Yahushua to do, just like he gave you work to do, and myself, and so on and so forth. It says, and now, O Father, glorify thou me with thine own self, with the glory which I had with thee before the world was. So Yahushua had glory with the Most High before the world was. This is how you get the title everlasting. Yahushua is never going away. The Most High allowed Yahushua to die and resurrect just to show you he ain't going away. And that power that allowed Yahushua to do that, you will also have that power as well. Because if you truly believe in the Most High and you truly believe in his son, that means that you were created from the beginning of the world as well. Therefore, you can also be everlasting through the Spirit. There's only one true everlasting, right? Which is the Most High. And Yahushua is also known as everlasting because the Most High created him before everything else. And Yahushua created the elect and predestinated them. When you read Titus, the first chapter, when you read Ephesians, countless other precepts, these predestinated saints, they were created and programmed to believe in the Most High before the world was. That's a promise. So we can rest right there. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 1. Right? Hebrews chapter 1. It's Hebrews chapter 1, and I want to get verse. We can start at 1. Hebrews chapter 1 and verse 1. And it reads, it says, God, who has sundry times and in diverse manners spake in time past unto the fathers by the prophets, had in these last days spoken unto us by his Son, whom he had appointed heir of all things, by whom also he made the worlds. So Yahushua made the worlds. Right? And we read that already, right? So this gives further confirmation that the Most High, through his son Yahushua, created everything And the things that are here, they wouldn't be here without the everlasting Yahweh Shai. Right? Back to it. Let's get another precept. Let's go to Micah chapter 5. This is Micah chapter 5, and I believe I want to get verse 2. It's Micah chapter 5, verse 2. It says, but thou, Bethlehem Ephratah, though thou be little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of thee shall he come forth unto me, that is to be ruler in Israel, whose going forth have been from old, from everlasting. So the Lord, Yahweh Shai, his going forth, I mean, his things he's done, they've been from old, from ancient, from antiquity, before this world. If you're before this world, then you're everlasting. It means that's the basic understanding that you could, if you have ears to hear. There should be the basic understanding, right? Let's not get wrapped up over the word everlasting. Let's go to Psalm chapter 90 and verse 2. This Psalm chapter 90 and verse 2. I started 1. It says, Yahweh, thou hast been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever thou hast formed the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting, thou art God. So the Most High, we know that the Most High is everlasting. We know he's before the foundation of the world. He created the world. But who did he create the world with? His son. So therefore, it says, or ever thou hast formed the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting, thou art God. Right? So we can rest right there. Lord willing is all linking up and it's making sense through the Spirit. Let's go back to Isaiah. Again, the reason why we're going over this is because you have men take this and say, look, Jesus is God. He is the only true God. No. And that's why you have to make videos like this to give the proper edification. Right? And now, you know, for brothers that's out here teaching, you can also in your own self, now you can go and you can break down his word and make sure you continue to defend his doctrine of the truth of this Bible, because you have a lot of men saying a lot of things and their mouths must be shut. It must be. This is Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 6. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father. Like I mentioned earlier, you're a father to the nation of Israel. Yahweh Shai is a father to the nation of Israel. You should be, we're not the father, but we are a father. Let's go to Sirach, Ecclesiasticus and Apocrypha, chapter 4 and verse 10. It says, be as a father. It's like, do you want to start at 9? I'll read verse 10. Be as a father unto the fatherless, and instead of a husband unto their mother, so shalt thou be as a son of the Most High, and he shall love thee more than thy mother doeth. So if you're a father unto the fatherless, then the Most High acknowledges you as the son of the Most High. Isn't Yahweh Shai the only begotten son of the Most High? Therefore, he is a father to Israel. Plain. Let's go back to Isaiah chapter 22. We read that the man Eliakim was known as a father to Israel. Why would it be out the contrary to believe Yahweh Shai also is a father to Israel? He's not the father, but he's a father. And when we say the, meaning above, right? The first, the main, so to speak. This is Isaiah chapter 22 and verse 22. Even Yahweh Shai, he himself had a father. He has the Most High, who's his true father, but on the earth, he had a father known as Joseph. That's plain, right? It's Isaiah 22 and 22. It says, hold on, do I want to start at 22? I'll start at 22. Isaiah 22:22. And the key of the house of David will I lay upon his shoulder. So he shall open and none shall shut. And he shall shut and none shall open. And I will fasten him. Hold on. I think I want to start a little higher. Yeah, I wanted 21. Salakia. I'll just read 20 for the sake of it. And it shall come to pass in that day, I will call my servant Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, and I will clothe him with thy robe and strengthen him with thy girdle, and I will commit thy government unto his hand, and he shall be a father to the inhabitants of Jerusalem and to the house of Judah. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 4. It's 1 Corinthians chapter 4 and 15. 1 Corinthians 4 and 15. For though ye have 10,000 instructors in a Mashiach, yet have ye not many fathers. For a Mashiach Yahushai I have begot, Slakia, for in Hamashiach Yahushai I have begotten you through the gospel. So what is Paul saying? Look, you can watch a bunch of different teachers. You know, you might, let's say you came in this truth through the brother Naquan, right? All praise to Yahweh Shem Yahshai, mighty brother, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahshai. Now you might be watching other camps and other brothers break down a word. You may watch myself, you may watch other brothers even on this channel, right? But if you came in the truth via the Lord allowing this certain individual to wake you up, well then guess what? Through the spirit, as if he's your father, guiding you and instructing you in the ways of how to serve the Most High. I have an actual father, right? That birthed me. But my true father is Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, or chiefly just Yahweh. Now, Yahweh Shai himself, he's also a father. He's a father to Israel. It may be certain people that woke up and, woke up through me teaching, right? So on a spiritual level, you understand how the understanding of father is someone on a spiritual level, is someone who begotten you through the spirit, broke down a word to you, gave you edification, someone you could, go to for counsel, advice, etc. Right? As your earthly father should be in that mode. But we understand the times we live in it. So Paul says, I'll read this again. This is on 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 15. For though ye have 10,000 instructors in the Mashiach, yet have ye not many fathers. For in the Mashiach Yahushai I have begotten you through the gospel. Wherefore I beseech you, be followers of me. For this cause have I sent unto you Timotheus, who is my beloved son. Now Timothy, he has a father, that someone actually birthed him. It actually took place. Timothy, he has the Most High. That's his true father. But Paul is also considered a father to Timothy because of the wise counsel and instruction in him, and Timothy ultimately being brought into the knowledge of the Lord through Paul. Read on. Who is my beloved son, who is my beloved son and faithful in the Lord, who shall bring you into the remembrance of my ways, which be in the Mashiach, as I teach everywhere and in every church. Now some are puffed up as though I would not come to you. We can rest right there. Let's get a couple more. Let's go to Philemon. Like I mentioned, that's the spirit. I open right to it. This is Philemon, verse number 10, right? It's one chapter, so verse 10. It says, I beseech thee for my son, Onesimus, whom I have begotten in my bonds. So while Paul was in prison, he begotten Onesimus. He came across Onesimus, broke down a word to him through the Lord. Get another precept. 1 Peter chapter 5. It's 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 13. It says, the church that is at Babylon, elected together with you, salute of you, and so do of Marcus, my son. So Mark, that you read about, he's considered the son of Peter. Is he his actual son? He actually birthed him and laid down with his mother? No, that didn't happen. But he's considered his son because he was brought up under the apostle Peter. So Lord willing, this is all making sense, right? Being a father to the fatherless, and how Yahweh Shai also is considered our father, right? He's not the father, and normally you won't associate him with that. Like normally you won't associate Paul with being your father, but these things could I mean, it's not wicked to say, right? It's not saying that now Yahweh Shai, he's the Most High God, because that's not what the scripture is saying at all. So back to it. Isaiah chapter 9 and verse number 6. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Let's go to the book of John chapter 16. St. John chapter 16 and verse 33. These things I have spoken unto you. I'll start at 32. It says, behold, the hour cometh, yea, is now come, that ye shall be scattered, every man to his own house, like every man to his own, and shall leave me alone. And yet I am not alone, because the Father is with me. These things I have spoken unto you, that in me ye might have peace. In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer, I have overcome the world. So we have true peace with Yahweh Shai. He's known as the Prince of Peace. Right? Let's go to Micah chapter 5, verse 1. Yahweh Shai is that peace. When we have tribulation in this world, when we catch a hell, this word is supposed to be our meditation and keep us rooted and grounded in the Most High. This is Micah chapter 5, verse 1. It says, actually, I want Micah 5 and Micah 5 and 5. 4. I started 4. And he shall stand and feed in the strength of the Lord and the majesty of the name of the Lord Yahweh, his God. Right? So through the spirit, we understand this is talking about Hamashiach. Hamashiach is saying, the scripture is literally saying that the Most High is his God. So if Christ is God, how could God have a God? Reading on. And they shall abide, for now shall he be great unto the ends of the earth. And this man shall be the peace. So Yahweh Shai is our peace. When the Assyrian shall come into our land. The Assyrian is a code word for the oppressor. You read about that in Isaiah chapter 10, and I believe it's 5 on down. And this is going to take place. You read about this in Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39, where we're going to be back in our land just after being in the wilderness with Yahweh Shai. And Yahweh Shai pleading with us face to face, but you're going to have the oppressor, which at that time is still going to, the last remaining oppressor, which is going to be the so-called white man from the Russian kingdom, if you will, or, the remaining of the so-called Romans, or it's like the remaining of the so-called Romans, but so-called Russians, right? Read about that in Revelation chapter 17 and verse 10, that Russia has to be the last one remaining. 2nd Ezra chapter 11 and 12 also breaks that down. Ezekiel 38:39, Gog and Magog is the embodiment of Russia and its allies. So they're going to try to come through our land and overthrow us. It says, and when he shall tread in our palaces, then shall we rise against him 7 shepherds and 8 principal men. Right, we're going to destroy them, put them to flight. A couple more precepts, and we're going to wind down. Psalm 72 and verse number 7. Psalm 72 and verse number 7, and it reads, in his days, now this account is going into, I'll start at verse 1 real quick. This account is supposed to be about Solomon. In fact, Psalm 72, a psalm for Solomon. But through the spirit, we know Solomon is a greater man. We know through the spirit, this is really talking about Yahweh Shai. So reading Psalm 72 and 1. Give the king thy judgments, O God, and thy righteousness unto the king's son. He shall judge thy people with righteousness, and thy poor with judgment. The mountain shall bring peace to the people, and the little hills by righteousness. He shall judge the poor of the people. He shall save the children of the needy, and shall break in pieces the oppressor. We just read that. They shall fear thee as long as the sun and moon endure throughout all generations. He shall come down like water. Hold on, read it again. He shall come down like rain, not water, but rain, upon the mown grass, as showers that water the earth. In his days shall the righteous flourish, and abundance of peace so long as the moon endureth. Now, again, this is a psalm for Solomon, but is Solomon bringing an abundance of peace as long as the moon endures? Is Solomon even around right now? ruling in the earth on a physical level? No. So through the Spirit, notice it's not talking about Solomon, it's talking about Yahushua. Verse 8, he shall have dominion also from sea to sea, and from the river unto the ends of the earth. They that dwell in the wilderness shall bow before him. When did that happen? When did those being in the, when was Solomon in the wilderness? But on a spiritual level, Yahushua would be in the wilderness. Read about that in Ezekiel chapter 20 and verse 34 on down, 33 on down. They that dwell in the wilderness shall bow before him, and his enemies shall lick the dust. You continue on in this account, but through the Spirit, we know that the peaceable one is none other than Yahushua. He's the Prince of Peace. Even Solomon meaning the peaceable one. But of course, Yahushua, he's the true embodiment of Solomon through the Spirit. One last precept. Let's go to Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 14. Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 14, and it reads, it says, for he is our peace, who had made both one and who had broken down the middle wall or partition between us. You read about this in Ezekiel chapter 37 and 35 on down, which speaks of that middle wall that was separating Southern Kingdom, Northern Kingdom, those that knew the truth, those that don't, right? Meaning Jews or Gentiles. The Lord breaking that down and allowing us to be one nation once again, because he's our peace. It's a mighty thing to be around brothers and sisters, and we all in harmony and synchrony on one accord. That's a mighty beautiful account. And most high willing, you'll be able to endure and be able to see that, right? And Lord willing, myself and my family. Most high willing was edified. Of course, we want to give all honor and all glory to Yahweh by Hashem Mashalkom like Yahushai. Continue to keep watching these last days. Continue to endure. All praise to Yahweh Shem Yahushai. His brother Kasadi from W. Jersey, Philly. Kwame Asherallah. Shalom.